Hello, I'm back with another video, and today I want to talk about why are black bosses the worst, and are black bosses the worst? And I found this trending on TikTok, and I decided to get a couple of videos of black people talking about how they hate working with, like, they hate having a black boss or a black supervisor. And I will say that some of the videos these people have like different experiences. Like, I seen one say that they don't like working for black people, they don't like working at black establishments, and they say that they rather have a white boss than a black boss. And then I seen some say that they rather have a black male boss than a black female boss, because they said that the black female boss is usually trifling and that they are very rude and very vindictive and whatnot. And then they prefer a black male boss because black male bosses are more laid back and chill. And then I found some videos talking about how they just rather have male bosses, period, because they don't like white or black female bosses, because it's harder working with women, and they rather have a white male boss or a male boss because men are easier to work with. So it's different reviews. Now I will say for me that my worst boss was Latinos, and I had a couple of Latino bosses, and I would say that I would rather have a black boss than a Latino boss. And I have had some bad experience, with my black supervisors in the past. But for me, the best boss I had happened to be white. It was a white female boss, and my worst boss happened to be a Latino. So I want to get into these videos, and I'll be back.
Said you was nice, nigga. I ain't even want you on the team.
This is so common, and it's actually really sad, because you know what's crazy is that a lot of these individuals know what it feels like navigating spaces that are predominantly white, and instead of trying to uplift the people that look like them, they disrespect them and belittle them every chance that they get. I've worked with so many black directors, managers, assistants, and there's only been like a couple that I can name that were phenomenal to me. But the rest, they garbage, and they're a disgrace to the black community and to black people in the work field. I could name you a couple of times where a black manager, director, assistant, whatever, was being so disrespectful to me that I was ready to like spaz. But I had to tell myself, like, I can't do that. I gotta calm down. I gotta relax, because I'm in a professional space. But if we were outside, I know you wouldn't try me. That's the crazy part. And that is why I tell people, if you're gonna be working with a black manager, a black assistant, black director, whoever, just make sure you peep their game. And you see that there's some shiesty or some funny individuals, keep yourself away from them and do your job and call it a day. Don't even engage with them. That's it. That's all.
I saw a TikTok video of a girl saying we need to prepare younger girls for when they come into the office, the drama and the trauma that older women will give them. I just want to add my 2 black cents in and let them be an older black woman too. Because I don't know, something about us, the higher we get, the older we get, the more bitter and resentment we get. Because the way that some of these older women will give you hell for being young, pretty, and black. I had not 1 but 3 of them in the same department. Mind you, it was a retail job. One of them was mad at me because I didn't have kids. I was continuing my education. Whenever like the store was dead, I would study. She would purposely hide my notes. The other She threw me out to the wolves. I had no experience on a register, but she would run to the back all the time, leaving me with the customers, and I had no experience on the register. So from there, I was floundering, baby. I was floundering. And she would get mad if I leaned on the counter. The other one, she'd get mad I asked questions. Mind you, this was a retail job. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, bro. Like,
nobody has treated me worse than a black woman manager or a black woman professor. This past semester, I had a black woman professor who, in an accelerated summer course, mind you, she waited until the last week of a 5-week course to grade all of the work, and it was basically like a game of cat and mouse with her, and she basically in the end just wanted to show that in the end, no matter what kind of work you turn in, if she didn't like you, she's not gonna pass you. Same thing with the managers. They have this perceived power over you, so they feel like since they beat the odds of being black and being a woman, they feel like they have to kick down everyone because that's what's been done to them their whole life. So they feel like they have to do that to any other younger women. And not only do they see you as competition for a job or for a promotion, they see you as sexual competition as well. And so if they aren't getting their needs met outside of work or with their partner, they're gonna take it out on you because they see you as competition and they don't want you to win.
One thing that I have learned, black supervisors and black co-workers are not your friends. Especially the women, the black women, they are not your friends. The co-workers, the supervisors, anybody that's in the upper position, they get a little power and they're going to take it to a whole nother level. And what I mean by what I said is they're going to laugh in your face, joke with you, smile in your face and all that, kiki with you. But behind your back, they ready to get you up out of there. They ready to get you fired. They is not your friends. Trust me, these black women, they not your friend. Anybody that's black that get a little position, they gonna treat you different. They gonna treat you different and act accordingly. That's why when I go to these jobs, I don't try to be their friends. I don't try to be cool with them. I don't try to do none of that. Like, don't do it. Because they not your friend. Trust me, they are not your friend. They working for the other side. That's it.
Y'all, I thought they was lying about having a black female supervisor, but no, they wasn't lying. Like, that shit is hell, literally.
Okay, I gotta say, I don't care. I don't care. Listen, why the fuck is it so hard to work up under black female supervisors? It's not everybody. But the ones that get it. Like, y'all just be weird. Y'all emotions be everywhere. Y'all already be crazy. But then when y'all get these titles and ranks and positions, y'all go freaking ballistic. And like, y'all just make it so hard for people to want to come to work and want to be a part of the company. Like, like at this point, give me a man supervisor any day. Give me a sweet white lady any day. Like, oh my God, y'all so emotional. Fix it, Jesus. My God.
I'ma just say it. Black women as supervisors, why y'all so damn nasty? It don't make no sense. Y'all be nasty as fuck. Y'all see another sister just got hired. Y'all just want to automatically just create this little level of competition, this little level of just really giving her a hard time for what? Y'all got women out here really stressed the fuck out before they even hit home. They got to pick up their kids. They got to make groceries. Got to, cater to their husband or whatever. And you around here just giving her attitude, just being nasty for what? Now I ain't talking to the nice ones. I ain't talking about the ones that really, that's okay. But y'all black women supervisors, y'all that shit to get to y'all head. For real. Y'all need to stop it. And if you are nasty, and if you're a black woman, you need to tame it down. Tame it down. You wouldn't like if somebody did that to your motherfucking door, would you? Yeah. Mean ass. The problem. Shit.
Let's talk about female black managers, because this is something that needs to be talked about, and it's not being talked about, and it's making me angry. Why do black female managers act the way that they do? Why? Why do they take their jobs so serious? They, compared to everybody, they take their job the most serious. Why do they act like that? Why? They be more strict compared to anybody else. This more strict. It's because they're not used to having power as black females. So now that they're in a position to where they have more power, they act like that. I don't know, but we need to really come together and talk about this. Why do black female managers act the way that they do? I need to know why. I need to know why.
Alright, y'all, so here's a quick story time of when I got fired from a job because my supervisor didn't like me. So this supervisor, she was someone who needed to be the center of attention, and you needed to be her friend and let her know all your business. Me, naturally, I'm a more quiet, reserved person, especially in a professional setting, because I feel like there's a certain line you have to draw between coworkers and like personal life. That's just how I am. I'm not going to tell my coworker, especially a boss, like everything about me, and it's crazy. She took that as me being rude, stuck up, and of course, aggressive. My quiet self, not bothering anyone. It's so aggressive. And that's how I was labeled. And it hurt, especially coming from a fellow black woman, knowing that the stereotypes that we face in the work environment anyway, and she's pushing those same ones onto me because simply I'm a reserved person. Like, she wanted me to perform for her, and that's just not me. I remember one particular time, my sister had just given birth. My niece, Ivy, she was a stillborn. And I love my sister so much. Anyone who knows me, like my sisters, I love them. They're more than sisters. So when she gave birth to my niece, I was distraught. I was crying. I was grieving. And I know in the employee handbook it said I have 3 days of bereavement, which is 3 days protective leave to grieve an immediate family member. She got mad at me because this was her exact words. Well, you didn't even tell me your sister was pregnant. And I have to check with the manager seeing if you can have those 3 days. I'm like, where does it say I have to tell you that my sister is pregnant? And bereavement leave is kind of standard. And I easily found it in the employee handbook. I think that was just her way of being more irritated that I didn't tell her my business rather than I needed the 3 days off. And that right there rubbed me the wrong way. After that, I gave her the cold shoulder, and I had an attitude. Yes, I did, because you want me to perform, I'm going to perform for you. I'm going to be the evil bitch that everyone wants me to be, because me being reserved and nice was not working. She would do little things and like document. I can tell she was trying to get me out the door. So luckily, I was already applying for other jobs, just preparing for it. And this same issue tends to happen at a lot of jobs I go to. It's like they want me to be the stereotypical black girl and perform for them, be loud, flamboyant, and just tell all my business like what I have going on. That's never been me. It's never going to be me. So she took that the wrong way. She set her paper trail to get me fired. Lo and behold, I got fired. But of course, like getting fired and losing a job so suddenly before I had another one secured, it did put like a damper on my finances, but I survived. I got out of it, and that actually catapulted me to start my career. So I'm actually grateful for that experience. Not that she fired me because she was dead wrong, but I'm grateful things happened the way they did because everything happens for a reason.
This black guy was so fucking rude. I don't know why black people, they just like to shit on their own people.
If a straight black man is doing the interview, there's a 90% chance that I'm not going to get the job. Earlier this year, I had this interview with this company. The first interview with a woman recruiter, I nailed it. The second interview was a Zoom interview with a black woman, and amazing, good job. I killed it. Now, bitch, the third and final interview was with a straight black man. Well, at least I think he's straight. So I go to the location for the interview. I have on a suit. My hair is cut. I'm giving Wall Street. So in the interview room, there's 4 of us waiting. So there's 3 women, and then there's me, a black man. So the first woman is a Caucasian woman, blonde hair, blue eyes. So the second person waiting is a mixed race or light-skinned black woman. The third person is a dark-skinned black woman with an afro. So the interviewer comes out, and as I said, he's a black man, maybe aged 28 to 35. Calls the first person, which is a white girl, and he's like, "Hey, Jessica, how are you doing today? Come on in." And that's his tone. So about 20 or 30 minutes go by, they come out of the office, and he shakes her hand, and he tells her to go get her parking validated. So now it's my turn. This man calls my name, I get up, and he looks me up and down. This man was looking at me like we was in the streets, and we're about to fight. And his tone was not how it is with the white lady. With me, it's, what's up, man? What's going on? Come on in, man. But with Jessica, you're like, hey, how are you? Come on in. But nonetheless, I go in the office, he's chewing his gum, and he does this. After about 45 seconds of silence, the first thing that this man asks me is a scenario-based interview question. I've done a lot of interviews in my life, but normally a scenario-based interview question is somewhere towards the end. Usually during an interview, one of the first things that the interviewer asks is, tell me about yourself, or why do you want to work for the company? I answered the question and I did a fucking fantastic job. I don't remember what the question was, but I did a good job. This man is sitting there and he does this. Cool. So he asked me like 2 more questions. And then he says, you'll get an email in about a week if you got the job or not. We get up, he walks me out of the office, no handshake. But as I'm walking out, he tells me to get my parking ticket validated. As I'm waiting to get my parking validated, he calls the mixed race light-skinned girl. And his tone with her changes. I get in my car and I leave, and across the street there's a gas station. So I'm on my phone for about 30 minutes telling my best friend about this interview. And the black lady with the afro, who was also waiting in the room, she pulls up next to me. And I'm like, how did your interview go? And she goes, child, you know me and you did not get it. She's like, the whole time the man was looking at my afro. She said he was so dry and he only asked like 2 questions. Can anybody else relate?
Do black women say that the worst leader they've ever worked for was another black woman? I think that there are 3 reasons. The first one is modeling, and I think black women, and in particular older black women, have had to model the leadership style of older white men in order to be successful. And often those leaders are poorly equipped, and also their leadership style is based in white supremacy culture. Based on that, black women weren't able to really lead authentically and lead with their blackness at the forefront. And so in order to excel, they either muted or erased their blackness. In many ways, black women who had to go through this feel that they are equipping us in their own version of tough love to help us advance too. Number 2 is competing. As black women in leadership and management, you're often tokenized, and it often means that you're applauded for being the only, celebrated for being the only, and then in the case that you made yourself palatable, when somebody else comes in and is a threat to your being the only, to being on that pedestal, that is threatening. Particularly if you felt like you've worked really hard for it and she didn't. And number 3, the last thing is what makes these other dynamics possible, because they are connected with proximity to power. And this explains why some black women will mute their blackness, or they will be okay being the token so that they can advance and secure the power that historically we do not have access to. And if another black woman is getting in your way to that proximity to power, need I say more? I want you to tell me a little bit in the comments about when you've seen this. If you aren't able to out somebody, go ahead and say where you've seen this in popular culture. I will put mine as well. Just because you know that this happens doesn't make it any better. If you are in a toxic environment working for a toxic black woman in leadership, you still need to make a pivot and make a change. So if you are looking to exit, to pivot, go ahead and schedule a career clarity chat with me. I want to talk to you about my 90-day career coaching program that I have designed specifically to support black women, high-performing black women, make a transition and pivot in her career.
Listen, I am a girl's girl. I support women's rights and sometimes women's wrongs. I'll call you out on your bullshit, but I'll probably still pick your side. So what I'm about to say isn't bashing women. However, I think it's very interesting the dynamics that we have whenever it comes to having a male in leadership versus a female in leadership. A lot of people tend to say it's easier to work with male bosses than female bosses. And from my personal experience, that has been true. So recently I was working under this female supervisor in a field that I worked in before. Whenever I worked in this field before, I had a male supervisor. I remember whenever I started working in that field with the male supervisor, sometimes I worked very late nights and I would have questions. So the first time that I reached out to him, I had sent him a text. He didn't respond until hours later, but then whenever he did respond, he said, my apologies for the delay and not getting back to you earlier. In advance, if you need me, please feel free to call me. And if I don't get back to you whenever you call me multiple times. That's fine. So recently, whenever I had the female supervisor in this field that I now have experience in, I reached out to her about an issue that I came across, and I kind of felt confident that I could solve the issue, but it was just that little iffy part that I was like, okay, let me reach out to her. I texted her and she didn't respond. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to proceed and get this over with. I'm confident that I know what I'm doing, so I'm just going, it's cool. Time passes. A couple hours later, she texts me and she says, Nisha, you can't expect me to be up at this time of hour. If you need me, call me. If I don't answer, call me again. Now, I respect directness. I respect authority. But her verbiage kind of threw me off because this was the first time that I had to reach out to her. And the first time that I reached out to this male figure, he came at me with a little bit more grace. And I say that to say this, even though I do think that she could have worded that better and talked to me like I am an adult, I am almost 30, so I've witnessed my female bosses have male higher-ups and my male bosses have male higher-ups. And oftentimes, those higher-ups are much more harsh and critical on the female supervisors or bosses than they are on the male bosses. And it could be for a plethora of reasons, but also, I personally have witnessed how misogyny and the patriarchy have influenced what becomes of female supervisors and male supervisors. There was this interview recently with that Mexican OT, and basically he was saying the N-word, and a female was like, what gives you the right to say that? And that Mexican OT said, I wish it was some men in here so I can respond. When he said that, he said it because he is physically stronger than women. He could easily dominate over these women, but he didn't want to take advantage of that situation because whenever a man enters the room physically, he could beat up Mexican OT, but Mexican OT was basically expressing like he's not going to back down regardless of who in the room. That same type of mentality happens with male higher-ups and male supervisors. If it's a female supervisor, those male higher-ups kind of feel like physically and mentally like you can't really compete with me, so I can do what I want. But sometimes whenever it comes to a male supervisor with male higher-ups, those higher-ups are like, okay, mentally, you might not be able to whoop me, but physically, you might be able to beat my ass, so let me watch my mouth. And thus, it trickles down to us seeing these male supervisors being super cool and, like, give us grace whenever it comes to situations, and these female supervisors being, like, super strict and kind of harsh in their words. I'm not saying it happens every time, but it is something that I've witnessed multiple times. You know, it's very unfortunate how misogyny and the patriarchy have generalized how we perceive women in power and how that also makes us not want to have women in these powerful positions.
So I never really realized that there's a stigma and really a huge myth around working for a Black woman, having a Black woman as a leader, as a manager, a supervisor. Before going into leadership myself, I had no idea that this stigma existed. I'm hearing things like working for a Black woman is terrible. They can be a B. They're incompetent. They're difficult to work for and to work with. One of my very first managers was a Black woman. This woman was so amazing to me. She was the first person who sat me down and she told me, Serena, you are responsible for your own career. And whatever it is that you want and whatever you aspire to do, it's your responsibility to make it happen, to not ever wait for someone else to give you permission to be great. It was something that I didn't realize that I needed to hear early in my career. It still resonates with me today. And she was also the very first manager who ever gave me a promotion. Leave me a note in the comments. Let me know your own experiences. It'll be interesting for me to hear from you guys and what you think.
This question is just for Black people to have a Black supervisor, especially Black women to have a Black female supervisor. But you would think, okay, it's a Black woman that's in management. She gonna help me out. She gonna let me know the ropes, the end.
I love conversations like this because it gives us an opportunity to educate and share ideas and thoughts behind presumptions. So as a former leader, obviously a Black female leader, I've worked at all levels of leadership. So I've been a frontline supervisor, I've been middle management, and I've also led a large team as a VP just before I retired a few years ago. And quite frankly, one of my worst managers when I was an employee was not a black woman, it was a white woman. Now, don't get me wrong. I had one black female manager when I was in middle management, and she was horrible. She was really, really an ineffective leader. And I talked about ineffective leaders in another video. But it had absolutely nothing to do with her being black. She was just a bad leader. And what made her a bad leader is that she was afraid to make decisions and ran from confrontation. So the program that I was working in at the time was in shambles. So there was no order and there was no effective leadership. And so I use these examples because when I'm going to use the VP as an example because that was the highest level that I attained. And with that comes a huge amount of responsibility. And then if you're a woman of color, in addition to that, comes a huge amount of pressure because in the industry that I worked in, there was a lot of quote unquote competition to meet quotas. And I was over a whole program. So these statistics were always measured by who's over which program. So as a black female, obviously, you're going to stand out because there was only one of me. But here's the rub. I made myself so available and I was a very effective leader to mentor not just women of color, but all women. And they came to me in droves. And what I wanted to do with these women, black women, other women of color, brown women, women in general that just wanted to pick my brain, understand how I got there, what do they need to do, where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses. I made myself so available. I became a known mentor in the organization that I worked in. So unfortunately, I think these are stereotypes. And when I went to this young lady's video, there were a lot of black managers in there, or people who had worked for black female leaders who experienced just the opposite. It was very positive. I hope that I left a legacy. I'm pretty sure that I did, but I'm not the one to measure that. The people who worked under me are the ones to measure that. But I wanted to just chime in on this topic because I'm very passionate about it. And I really set out to give all of the folks who worked for me a positive experience, to mentor them and coach them and train them up and be a leader of service. So anyway, that's my story, y'all, as a black female leader.
So those were the videos, and as you can see that most of them had a hard time with their black supervisors, especially black female supervisors. And I would say that most of my black supervisors happened to be black and female. I never had a black male boss, so I can't critique them, nor have I had a white male boss, so I can't critique them either. Like the only male boss I ever had were Latino, and I had a Latino boss at Taco Bell. I didn't care for him, and I had a Latino boss at my Wendy's, and I even have a video up talking about my boss, Tomas. And I will say that that if I had to pick between a black boss and a Latino boss, I would pick the black boss because my worst experience was with Latinos. But I will say that the black bosses I did have, they were all a piece of work. And I had a black boss at a black female boss at Boston Market. I had a black female boss at Planet Smoothie. I had a black female boss at my Wendy's because I worked at 2 different locations. And I also had a black female boss at KFC. So yeah. I had a couple of black female bosses, and they were a piece of work. They were not friendly. They did not have my back. For me, I feel like they just didn't care. At these jobs, I felt unappreciated, and really, I felt like, I was just another number to them. They just wanted me to work. They didn't really care about me, and I just left KFC recently, and I'm having a video that I want to put up for next week. So please stay tuned for that. And I'm going to talk about my experience there. And I wasn't there that long. It was only like 3 weeks tops. And it's like it was so bad. It was so ghetto. In my opinion, I know when it comes to black bosses, everyone has, their own experience. Like I seen comments from where they said that their best boss was a white male, and their worst boss was black. And then I seen somebody say that their best boss was Indian, but their worst boss was an white female. So they all have different experience. And I had one girl. It was one black girl in the comment section. She said that her best boss was a black female boss. So, it depends. Like, we have some black people who just lack professionalism, and that can happen with any race. So I understand. But I seen some black women in the comment section who are like managers and supervisors, and they said that they are trying their best by trying to not perpetuate this stereotype. They're trying to be the best boss they can be, and they're trying to prove people wrong that it's not hard working with black bosses, especially black female bosses. And I will say that that my mom, she also had dealt with terrible black bosses in the past. Like I remember she told me a story where she was working at this call center, and her black boss happened to be a black male, and she said that the dude, he was like sexually harassing them and stuff. And she tried to report him, and she told me that all the women were gonna be by her side if she ever snitched on him, and she did, and not one woman, spoke up about it. She was the only one. And so, all the women at the call center lied, because they said that they were going to have her back, and they didn't. And she was trying to do her best to get this man, removed from the company, because he was messing with all the women. And it was crazy because he had the nerve to be married. So he was married, messing with all these women, and I said, I just don't understand it. The good news is, she didn't get fired. She got to keep her job, but unfortunately, the call center, they went out of business, so eventually she got laid off. But after that, she did find another job. But and there was another job she was telling about where she was working at a hotel. She was a receptionist, and she was working for she had a black female boss named Dominique, and Dominique was a trip, and Dominique took her for granted, and she basically wanted to get her trained because her son was moving to Kentucky. And so she trained my mom, and she had my mom working like almost 7 days a week. And she even begged my mom to come in, and she was cramping, and she usually don't like to go to work when she's cramping. And she decided to come in, and there were days when like her boss, when she wouldn't come to work, she would be in her bed and she don't feel like working because she spent last night drinking, and so she got drunk and wasn't able to come into work. And she asked my mom, could she come in on her day off, and she did. And my mom did everything that woman had asked her to do, and she still ended up firing her. And I'm just saying that Dominique, she was just a rude, nasty lady. And I said, even though she got fired, she still ended up finding a job better, and she went back to call centers. And I said the job she got now is not perfect, but it's better than where she was working. So yeah, it's like every job, I know every manager ain't gonna be perfect. Anybody can be a manager. I feel like it's all about favoritism and whatnot. Yeah, but I feel like that even though there's a lot of unprofessional black people, I know that there's a lot of unprofessional people in all races, and I worked with a lot of unprofessional people, and I had black, white, and Latino bosses. Like I said, I never had a white male boss or a black male boss, so I can't critique them, but I definitely had plenty of white female bosses, black female bosses, Latina bosses, and Latino men. And all the jobs I had, it sucked, and I really left because of bad management. And I feel like it's like that at every job, and most people, they put up with it because they have bills to pay. But yeah, I feel like that's all I have to say. At least that's all I wanted to say. So please comment and tell me what you think about the video. Have you ever had a black boss that wasn't for you? If you had a non-black boss, were they the best boss you ever had or the worst boss you ever had? Please let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to like, and don't forget to hit the bell. And I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.